So I was just noticing as I was coming in on the wall, since this is a house of the Quakers, the instructions for people who come in to participate in meetings, they recommend that we arrive a little bit earlier and we lift our hearts up to God and sort of wait for something. I don't know what they probably wait and prepare the meeting in silence. So that's exactly what we were doing, right? We were sitting in silence and just enjoying the present moment. This particular topic actually is connected with a book I wrote, and it was launched in 2016, called The Ultimate Frontier. And it's all about going beyond the limits of going beyond our limited thinking, basically. And I start off the book with a story that I heard when I was very young. My brother told it to me. He was older and wiser than me. And I was not very happy with the state of the world. In my days, Australia was, when I was 18 actually, Australia was still involved in the war in Vietnam. And they still had military service, obligatory military service, so that kids, 18 years old, were being sent to the war. And I was very unhappy. On one side, I'd broken my thigh, and I was limping. So they said, "You can't serve in the army," which is okay. But I was not very happy, and I was leading protests and things like that. And my older brother said to me, "Why, you should be part of the solution, not part of the problem," because I was getting angry against anger, right? Which didn't make sense. And he told me a story. And only last year, in fact, I found out where that story came from. It was a story about two frogs. One frog lived in a well, and the other frog lived near the sea. And the seaside frog invited the well frog to visit his place. And so they went hopping happily towards the seaside, and when they got there, the seaside frog says to the well frog, "Look at that water, isn't it beautiful?" And the well frog said, "That's not water, water's black. Water has no movement, has a different smell. That's not water." He's looking at the sea. Yeah, it's water. Just wasn't the water that he was used to. So they went towards the seaside, they dipped their toes into the water, and he said, "Oh yeah, it is. It really is water." And the analogy is about, we live in our own little enclosed environment, and we don't imagine that things are bigger than they are. And anyone who's ever done any traveling substantially, you realize how much of it's really a false notion that people, a limited culture and a limited vision of things is the right one. In fact, if you look at the different scriptures of the world too, you'll find so much similarity that you think that these people are all whoever wrote the scriptures, they're all talking basically about the same things. If you look at people's behavior, when they pray, for example, and they try to send themselves to some other dimension where they think God is, or nirvana, or whatever, they close their eyes and they put their hands together, or they hold their hands up like that. They're trying to go beyond this physical world even, in some way, in their thoughts. And that's probably why they close their eyes too. And when people are in deep meditation, they also trying to go beyond. So going beyond has always fascinated. No battery. That's what happens to us too, isn't it? Our battery's running low. It's not plugged in. Okay, it's probably loose. Just let them sort that out for a minute. Got it? Yep. Okay. And you know who told the story of the frog was no, it's gone off again. That's it. Is it connected or not? Yeah, but no, it's not. It's a bad connection. So it's very interesting. Okay, let's see how far we go, and if it doesn't work, we do something else, no problem. But the story originally was the first yogi who visited the West, Swami Vivekananda, and he told this story in the Chicago World Congress of the Congress of the World's Religions, the first one, in 1893. And he started off, he said, brothers and sisters of the world. And of course, it's not a usual thing, especially in those days, to say something like that. And he told the story, and then he said, look, I'm from the Hindu background, and I live in my Hindu well. Christians live in their Christian well. Muslims live in their Muslim well. And all of us think that we've got it right, you know. But the reality is much bigger than our wells. And that's, it's so true, isn't it? We think that our vision of the world is what is real, but it's just relative to ourselves and our own experience, maybe even our own history. I was in Japan a couple of years ago, and because I travel a lot, I know that the people, the countries around Japan are not very happy about the Japanese, mainly because of what they did before the Second World War and what they did during the Second World War. They killed millions, right? But they don't tell that. I asked them if they knew exactly why the countries around them didn't like the Japanese, and they had no idea. Probably the history books tell things slightly differently. I'm sure that the history books in Israel and the history books in Palestine tell slightly different stories of the same facts, right? So the Russians tell a story about the Second World War, different from the Americans, different from the Germans, and so on. It's not a problem. It's actually human nature that you give favor to your own culture and at the same time question the cultures of others. Maybe it's out of fear, probably. Our insecurity and our insistence to live within certain limits is because we feel secure in them. So I'm going to a few basic premises here. If you're concerned about spiritual development, first one is to understand that we are spiritual beings going through a human experience rather than human beings looking for a spiritual one. So that actually points out I exist even before this bodily form maybe. And I'm going through an experience here, but I am the spirit. and I have a body, which could change our well thinking, using the analogy of the well frog. The second thing is that if I'm really concerned about changing the way I think and changing the way things happen to me, because there is some interaction between how I am and what happens, I can change that. I can change my perspective. That's great news, isn't it? I'm not condemned to be just a continuation of what I've been until now. I can do something about it, but I have to understand myself, and I have to have some sort of deep internal process that helps me to work those things out, such as meditation. And the third thing is that whatever we've been through as spiritual beings is recorded in us. Even if it's not at a surface level, there's something deeply recorded in us which makes us suspect what is true and what's not true, even though we can't articulate that to ourselves. So these are three premises that we're going to work with in our little talk here. Like, we start off pretty, innocent. And this kid climbing up the stairs, what's in his consciousness at that particular moment? He's totally present, right? Enjoying this journey up the stairs. But a few years later, we become bit confused. And mostly, we have... I was doing some work with the airport authority in Brazil 6 months before the World Cup, Soccer Cup, in 2014. And they were, tearing their hair out because they had to fix up 10 airports where the games would be happening in different cities to bring them up to really good standards so that the millions of people coming there for the game, for the World Cup, they would feel okay going through these airports. And they were behind in every single one of them. And so and I was talking about peace of mind. That was the talk with them. And I asked them, okay, you want peace of the mind? The mind is a bit like an airport, I said, where lots of things land and lots of things take off, right? So I asked them which was the busiest airport in Brazil, and they said the domestic regional airport in Sao Paulo, which is, Sao Paulo is 22 million people, so you can imagine. So on a rush hour, air traffic is like a flight every 90 seconds, It's a wonder that there's not more accidents. And I said, okay, let's say, and you just think about this, let's say we have 1,000 waking minutes in a day, and the rest of the time we're sleeping. Now the 440 minutes we're asleep. So if I have one thought every second, some mental activity every second during 1,000 minutes, how many things are there? Easy, right? 60,000. So one every minute, there are 1,000 minutes, 60,000. So it's possible to have some think less, some think more, but it's possible to have up to 120,000 things, bits and pieces of our lives, swirling around in our minds, juggling for sort of attention, disputing the space which is our mind, which is the airport, at the same time. So if I had 100,000 things going on in my mind every day, which is the equivalent of, in terms of, if I could translate that into bytes, it would be the same as 174 newspapers. A lot of things, right? So just think about it. And if you can, and our biggest challenge therefore would be to reduce the quantity and to increase the quality, right? So what do you think? How much percentage of that is useless? How much of that 100,000 things going on is useless? It's not productive at all. It's not real even. I mean, we can think about it, but basically, if this circle here that you can see on the screen is the field of our mind, well, you see, what's outside in the world is slightly different from what we think inside. You know, let's say my wife is already 50, 60 years old, but in my mind she's still, you know, a young girl. Or, you know, my mother has a 50-year-old son, but in her mind he's still a young boy, right? Somebody who has a factory which is very polluting, he probably thinks that it's not so bad at all. And, you know, the vision or the version that we have in our minds doesn't actually exist. So everyone that you think about and that you interact with, your version exists only in your own head. Is that right? The other person is not exactly like that. And so often we're limited by our vision of people because this person is really difficult. This person is really hard to get on with. How many times does someone have to do something irresponsible to be labelled as irresponsible in my mind? How many times? Once. Maybe it's the worst, that guy had a bad afternoon, you know, it's the only time in his whole life he's done something irresponsible, but it actually happened with me. So, in my mind, irresponsible. So you think about it, the way we label people, the way we label situations, things are not exactly like that. People are not exactly like that. None of us are our reputation. Is that right? Are you your reputation? Maybe you've given some evidence for that, but in fact, maybe not, right? So in a way, you know, we think that just because what's above the surface is fantastic, that what's below the surface is also. But it's not, right? We think that maybe our life is charging ahead fantastically, but in fact, it may not be. Or, you know, we think that we are Superman, but in reality, you know, so even we have a distorted vision of ourselves. Yeah? And this is, in a way, I'm not real. I'm limited by my vision of myself as well. I think that I'm something, but actually I'm something else. Sometimes I think that I'm great when I'm really not so good. Or on the other side too, I am really great, but I think that I'm, you know, really bad. So we have a problem with the way we see things. We don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. I don't see the world as I really am. I see the world in a way that, you know, is based on my experience. I've had a really bad week, so how do I see myself? You know, I've been defeated 10 times by the same problem. I probably don't see myself as being particularly victorious, right? So trying to separate ourselves out from the rubbish, trying to see ourselves as we really are, will help me to see the world as it really is. And therefore, the way I interact with people and things will be accordingly, you know. Now, I have to do it for myself. Somebody can show me, somebody can tell me, I can learn something from a book, I can go to a talk like this and get some sort of an inspiration, but finally I have to wind myself up. I can't depend on others in a way. You know, a lot of our relationships are based on that sort of dependence. If you love me, I will love you. If you do this for me, I will do this for you. If you say nice things to me, I will continue to say nice things to you. Which is sort of an arrangement, but is not exactly useful for independent action, which sometimes we need to do. We seem to be always waiting for someone else, waiting for someone else's approval. And so if you look at it, maybe you won't be able to read this, it's pretty small, but there are different levels of stress because of all of this, anxiety even, you could say. The level 1 is a good sort of stress, like a well-tuned guitar. The strings are taut, but they are not loose, right? And they're not so tightly wound up that they will break. So it's good to have a sort of a level of tension which keeps you going. It's good. But if it starts to get, continuous, there's something aggravating you all the time that you're always somehow complaining about, then it's a sort of level 2. Level 3 is where there's a chronic sort of a stress with negative, you start to see signals of that in your health and so on. And the level 4, that you're really chronically exhausted. So you really need to see a doctor. So where are you? What's your sort of craziness? So what stress is that we can't deal with the things that are happening around us in an appropriate manner. That's probably the bottom line definition. And therefore we're thinking too much. And we're maybe getting angry too much and upset too much and irritated too much, and that has some effect on our bodies as well. Where are you? Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? Or, level 5, you're probably dead. Gone past the limit. I mean, a lot of people reach level 5 without knowing how they got there. Just, they're walking along, that's it. Their heart stops beating. But if we have a deeper look at ourselves, we can even sort that out. Because a lot of our stressful and anxious thinking, even I know, I was seeing an article the other day that actually the crime rate in the United States has gone down. It doesn't seem like that from the press, and at least focuses on these crazy people that just shoot others in a church or in a country music festival. But actually the numbers have gone down. But the anxiety is going up. You know why? Because of the uncertainty. In an article in the Harvard Business Review, they said we are in times of permanent uncertainty. Isn't that great? Permanent uncertainty. And they were just talking about the business world. You never know what's going to happen in the market. You never know what's going to happen in the street. Anything can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. So that has ramped up the anxiety quite considerably. But I can change that in myself and help others. If I don't help myself, how can I help others, basically? Now, if you make it more sort of this mess, and let's be quite honest. Somebody is recording. Yeah? I'm hearing my own voice back. It's an interesting echo there. But you know, our thinking can go out of control, just like this diagram. Especially if you've got 100,000 things going on. And where do I find myself in that, you know? The external chaos, the external chaos and the internal chaos, they are sort of having a dance together, isn't it? My confusion and the confusion that happens outside of me, they start to go into a crazy sort of dance. And there are too many things to deal with, especially living in a city like this, you know. And if you're having 100,000 bits and pieces of your life floating around in your mind every day, it's not very easy to slow that down. And I saw that you have a program called Stop and Recharge. It's not so easy to stop and recharge. It's our pause button is broken, you know. We try to put the pause on it doesn't work, you know. So just to sit and to calm down your thinking. And what happens when you calm down your thinking, you start to see things more clearly. And if you get in touch with your real deeper nature and bring that to the surface, then what's going to happen? So I'm going to ask you now, I mean, I'll do it at the end too, but just let's, knowing that that's how things are, maybe, there are 3 anchors. One is a sense of identity. Who am I really? The second is a sense of purpose. What am I supposed to be doing, right? And the third is a sense of direction. Where am I going? So let's stop and reflect for a minute. And just, I ask you to leave your hands free if you can, maybe just on your lap. Don't need even to close your eyes, just fix your gaze on some point in front of you. Just let the world go on around you. Yeah, how many things are happening at this moment in this city? Yes. So let the things go on around you in their own speed. Let me just come aware of the moment now. I can hear things, I can feel the temperature, I can feel the chair that I'm sitting on, the floor, where my feet are. And I can see on the screen of my mind the thoughts that are just coming up. And an amazing thing happens. As soon as I start to observe my thinking, it starts to slow down. Because I realize that I am not the thought, I am the one that's creating the thoughts. So I can create any thought I want, you know. Let's say, if I say strawberry, the thought of a strawberry comes to your mind. If I say sun, I can think about the sun. And you know, if I tell myself something, I will think about it. Just think about your house, for example, or your apartment. Just go to the door, open the door to your house or your apartment, go in, and what's on the left as you go in? What's on the right? Now you go in, you sit down on your favorite armchair or sofa. You've been out and about and you're feeling pretty tired. Just sit down on your favorite seat. Feel it. Feel it. Then you remember you're a little bit thirsty, so now go to the part where the refrigerator is, and you left some orange juice there in the morning. Then you like a glass of orange juice. So get the cup or the glass, pour yourself a glass of orange juice and sip it. Can you feel it? Can you taste it? So that, just let that image dissolve, and let's come back now to the moment here in the room. Open your eyes more and come back to the normality of here. Got it? Did you taste your orange juice? Could you taste it? Yeah? So all of that stuff, we're not here drinking orange juice, but it's recorded in us, right? And I can control the thinking if I go about it. You were not thinking about anything else when you were going through your apartment, right? You were just able to be there, and, maybe you were thinking, what this silly guy is talking about, Maybe not, but we are the ones that create our thoughts. I can let my thoughts happen in a completely uncontrolled way, or I can direct my thinking. Now, I am not my thought. I am this spiritual being that thinks, which is a little bit different. I create my thoughts. My thoughts are my children. So, if they're misbehaving, I can do something about it. And the sense of purpose is, what am I here for, basically? Now, if I understand myself as a being of peace, what does a being of peace do? Huh? What does a being of peace do? Huh? It sort of spreads peace, right? What does the light do? Spreads light. What does a microphone do? Spreads sound. What does a being of peace do? So if I start to understand who I really am deeply, I also understand what I'm supposed to be doing, and therefore I understand where I'm supposed to be going. Makes things easy. I'm not going to do something that will make me more peaceless. Right? If I understand who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing, and some options come up in front of me, I'll do the thing that will keep the peace rather than do the thing that creates the peacelessness. Anyway, you've got this level of. This is the problem. We want things, right? You've got the subconscious affecting the conscious. And you think something, you want something, and we'll do that. I want this diamond. I'm going to get that diamond. Definitely it's in my future for me. But what happened is the mess gets in the way, right? And actually what comes up as a result is a stone rather than a diamond. Now to get to the, let's say I want to be more stable, calm, I want to have excellent results in my life, but the inner mess gets in the way and produces the opposite, So what I have to do, and this is the essence of what meditation is, right? I'm in my, my conscious state. I stop and I go inside and I find those gems, those real things which are like my basic nature, and I bring them to the surface, Then I can produce things outside of me as well. So my external reality and my internal reality are related. Do you realize that? If you are living a chaotic life, where is the chaos? It's not. It's really. You have to be quite courageous to accept that. Actually, it's really a bit humbling. That confusion has something to do with me. I have. Who has a difficult person on their personal radar? Do you have some difficult person there on your, But the difficult, I'll just tell a story here. A woman came up to me after a talk in Sao Paulo, where I live now. More or less live, so I'm always traveling. But she came to me and she said, I'm really finding things to be very difficult. I said, yeah, what sort of things? She said, well, ever since I was young, everything's been really difficult. My parents are extremely difficult people. I had to leave them. It wasn't working out. I went to the capital to study, but I decided to study dentistry, and it was so difficult. But I finally got through, and then I set up a clinic with some colleagues, and they were so difficult, And then it became so difficult trying to do this in Sao Paulo, I decided to go back to my hometown. But then the owner of my apartment, what's such a difficult person, and then, she used the word difficult about 20 times in 5 minutes. And I said, wait a minute, in the story of your life, do you consider yourself to be a difficult person or an easy person? She said, no, I'm extremely difficult. So I said, well, have you ever considered that the difficult person in your life is actually you? But these other people and things may not have been difficult because you are difficult that things are difficult. And she said, oh, wow, never thought of it like that. It's probably true. So I said to her, look, the next time you feel the urge to say something is difficult, you have to stop the word in the middle and say, this situation is extremely different. It's not difficult, it's just different. So it depends, if I want something really good to happen outside of me, I have to have something really good happening inside of me as well. Otherwise it won't happen. It's just wishful thinking. You want something great, but there's no basis for that great thing to happen inside yourself. So it won't happen. Basically, that's how life is. So I want to have something to happen. I have to be that. And that's not so easy, And through meditation, I can go inside and bring those things out and take them to the surface, I said a microphone just amplifies voice, a light does, and an armchair makes us comfortable. What do? Who am I? These sorts of things. And if you go into this state in which you can go to the center of your life, there I am, I'm surrounded by the different pieces, my health, my family, work, friends, my financial situation, leisure activities, my spiritual practices, study, etc. And they're like different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. I cannot just deal with those things like that, One thing to the other, work, family, study a little bit, work, family, relax a bit, work, family. That's why people are, after 40, 50 years, they just conk out, that's it, they stop functioning. So I need to have a sense of self. I am not a function of what I have. I'm not a function of what I do. I have to have a sense of who I am in the middle of everything and deal with these different parts. And it's much more economical. Instead of jumping around in a crazy way, forgetting something and then running after it, No, I am this spiritual being. Now I am in my workplace. What do I have to do and be? I am with my family. I'm a spiritual being. But what do I have to do and be with my family? So dealing with things from the center is much more economical in terms of thinking, Another problem that happens, if you look at that, you probably won't know what it is. But if you look at that, now I understand. So sometimes our nose is so close to the situation and we can't see what it is. And situations are within situations which are within situations. If I don't see the whole context, I won't understand. For example, this is a rooster in a farmhouse, obviously, and some kids are looking at the rooster through the window. But this farmhouse is actually not a farmhouse, it's a model. So the rooster is actually not a real rooster, just a model. And it's not really a model, it's the cover of a book. In the hand of a kid who's relaxing, by a swimming pool. But it's actually not a normal type of swimming pool, it's a ship. And it's not really a ship, it's actually an ad on the side of a bus. Yeah? Which is actually not even a bus, it's a scene on a TV set. Which is not even a scene on a TV set, it's a stamp. And the stamp is on a letter that's been sent to this person in the Solomon Islands. And the guy who delivered is just going away, 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 So where's the rooster? See, we don't see the big picture hardly ever. Can you see your problem now? The thing that kept you awake all night last night that you were worried about, can you see it? You can't see it. So the distance between the I don't know even can't remember what you call it, the thing of the rooster, what do you call it, the crown or something? You go back, the distance is huge, right? And there's a scene within a scene within a scene within a scene within a scene. The distance between that and the little tiny pearl that we call our planet swimming through space is huge. And actually there are even other dimensions that we're not even aware of, That this is a process here and there's a plan here and there are dimensions beyond here. That place that people try to remember when they pray, that the Christians call heaven or the Buddhists call nirvana or the Muslims also call heaven, that place where God or Allah or Shiva or whoever they think is the Supreme Being is the same place. And we're in the same process here, in our different little wells, right? We're in the same process in our different little wells. And we've forgotten basically who we are and where we're from and where we're going. Now, if you find somebody in the street and you ask them, who are you? I don't know. Where are you from? I don't know. Where are you going? I don't know. What would you think? Poor person is lost, right? Has got amnesia, but spiritually we have amnesia also. We've forgotten. We've forgotten the whole thing, Our nose has been too close to the roosters for too long, that we've forgotten the big picture. So these are sorts of things, we've got this sort of rational side to us that sort of tries to deal with things and events, and we've got this emotional side to us which tries to deal with relationships with others. But you can't control events, can you? Can you control other people? Have you tried to control other people? Were you successful? Okay. Do you like to be controlled by someone else? No. So, but you do like to control someone else, right? It's not fair, right? But the only thing I can really do, if I use my emotional intelligence to deal with relationships, and it's sort of these things are happening in parallel, the right side of the brain, and to observe and understand and rationalize, I need my rational intelligence, which is sort of a serial processing going on the left side. But in the fact, what synchronizes everything, and what I can really control is me, I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of all of this emotions and rationalities, and I have to understand who I am, and I have to understand what I have to be, So if you look at this skin and bones, right? The skin and bones plus this spiritual being is the human being, right? When they come together, but if you say I, everyone now look at your hand. Just look at your hand. Move your thumb, okay? Who's deciding to move the thumb? It's not the thumb that's deciding to move itself, right? I am making my thumb move. Your index finger, okay? Middle finger, ring finger, little finger, all of the fingers, move them. They're not moving by themselves. So if you picked up a pen and wrote something, the pen is also not writing it by itself. You are deciding what words to put on the page and how to put them, how neatly to write, and so on. So it's the same way, it's not the mouth that's speaking, but it's the spiritual being using the mouth to express itself. Yeah? This is very important to understand, because I'm that energy that gives life to the body, but when I leave it, it dies. So I don't die. It's just when I leave it that the body dies, right? Now this is a picture I took of a lake that we have in our retreat center in upstate New York. In fact, a lot of time people from here go there, right? Driving even. Near in the Catskill Mountains. So one day in the early morning I took this picture in the summer, right? And I was naughty because I threw a rock into the lake, the pond actually, it's not a lake. I threw a rock into it. Look what happened to the image. This is when it's completely like a mirror. This is when just one small stone was thrown into it. So our mind is the lake. When it's still, it can reflect. Things are clear. When even some little thing is thrown into it, it disturbs the reflection. So if constantly we're throwing not just stones into the lake of our minds, but we're throwing rocks, right? And sometimes big rocks. How can I understand anything? So I have to go back to that state where I know who I am. I am the spiritual being giving life. And in the world, some people are aware. Most people are blind. And you see in the back there's someone who's sort of one eye open, right? But what sort of person would I like to be? I'm sure all of us would like to be aware of what's going on, to be, not only aware but actually giving light to those who are not aware, who are blind in some way or the other. And of course, the blindness is not of these two eyes; it's the third eye that sort of, got mud in it, right? We can't see. We can see with these two eyes, but we can't understand what we're seeing. So these are, it's not so difficult to become aware, but I have to work on it. It's not like I take a pill every day and suddenly I'm okay. But if I understand what I'm seeing, I can deal with it better. If I can see more, I will understand more and I will decide better. So the limitations keep us sort of with these blindfolds on. And we imagine that what we're seeing on the screen of our mind is actually what's happening. But then I open my third eye and wait a minute, why am I being so stupid? Why am I being so angry? Why am I being so, so attached or so egotistic? Let me just sort it out. So that's basically the whole idea of the talk going beyond our limits. But who goes beyond the limits is the soul, right? And I am actually unlimited. I'm limited to the extent that I believe myself to be a physical being that was born in a particular moment, is going to die in a particular moment. But actually, I've had a long past before this birth, and I'll have a long future after it. So I'm this whole thing. I'm not, this birth is just a chapter of a big one, big book. Okay? So anyone got any comments or questions? It would be useful, if you want I can answer. I don't know if I can answer what you're going to ask, but if you got anything to ask or to comment, and then after that we'll have some meditation. Yeah? You'll have to speak up because it's...
I guess the whole thing with your identity and your purpose and your direction, how do you find that?
Well, if...
How do you find the whole thing confusing? How do you get out of that?
Yeah, the thing is that you have to work on the first step first, my deep spiritual identity, who I am, what my values are, for example. We're all slightly different, but once I wrote a book called Human Values in the Workplace, and the human resources director of the central bank in Brazil invited me to go there to give a talk, and it would be televised to the whole country in the units of the central bank. And I went there the day before in Brasilia, the capital, the headquarters of the central bank, to meet her, to work out the details of the talk and see the auditorium and see how it was and so on. And I noticed as I was going into the bank that they were having a campaign for people to treat paper money with more care, because they figured that if people handled money with more care, it would last longer. And if the money would last longer, they would save so much in printing costs, printing money costs, $5 million in 3 years or something. So they wanted people to be more careful when they handled money. And I said, I'm going to use this in my talk. So that night I took a coloured photocopy of a 100 real note, which is about $50. And in the middle of the talk I pull it out of my pocket and say, okay, I'm feeling very generous today, who wants $50? And of course 5, 6 put their hands up. And then I took the note and I crumpled it up, right in front of the cameras. And of course I talked about this campaign with the HR director. She was having a heart attack. You can't do this. You're on, you're being televised to the whole central bank and you're crumpling up the money. What about our campaign? I said, don't worry. She was sending daggers to me, through her eyes. I said, no. And then I took the note and jumped on it, stepped on it and picked it up, and I asked the people that put their hands up, that they still want it. And they said, yeah. Then the ultimate blasphemy, and I think it's like burning the flag, I suppose. I took the note right in front of the camera, I ripped it in half. And then I took out some sticky tape. I said, you still want it? They said, yeah, we can change it at the central bank, right? I don't know what the rules are in Canada, but if you have money that's been stuck together, it's still valid. And I said, look, I did this because this is a fake note. I would never do that with a real one. And I said, look, what happened? It didn't matter what I did to the note, it continued to have the same value. So I said, we are like that. I have a value that does not change with circumstances. I have deep innate values which do not change with circumstances, so it does not matter if the world crumples me up, jumps on me, or rips me in half, I continue to have the same value. So as I meditate more and more and I start to understand what my real nature is, then I will understand what I'm supposed to be doing in this world. Until then, if I don't know who I am, I won't know what I'm doing, basically. I'll be doing it without knowing why. And if you look at people's crazy work lives and family lives, just rushing around, one thing to the other, to the other, to the other, where am I going with all of this rushing, What's the ultimate goal of just doing that? So if let's say, and this is, as you meditate further, you come to understand that you are this loving being, child of God. You understand that you are this peaceful being in your essence. That's what you are. And so if you are a loving and peaceful being, what you have to do is to be loving and peaceful in your life, basically, the way you treat others. So purpose in life is not just, I'm going to be a soldier, or my purpose in life is to conduct a philharmonic orchestra, or my purpose in life is to become rich. They are secondary. The deeper spiritual purpose is to reveal what you are. Reveal who you really are through those things, through whatever you do. So it's a deeper thing. Just like, as I said, light shines. Water quenches thirst. What do? So that sort of thing, it's a fruit of meditating more, then it becomes clear. And then, of course, you feel more centered, and you don't get lost in, easily, and don't get fooled easily either, which is very useful. Very useful. Anyone else? Yeah?
majority of the acts that we do on a day-to-day life, our unconscious mind is doing.
Subconscious.
Subconscious mind is doing.
Yeah.
So meaning
Most of us live on automatic pilot.
yes. So meaning what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach our subconscious mind by getting into the meditative state using a conscious mind. But my question is, in spite of our best efforts, sometimes during the journey we face some turbulences, and those turbulences get recorded into our subconscious mind, and it becomes difficult to take them out.
Yeah.
So I need to maybe get some help or
Yeah, all of us do. Who needs help?
what is your thought process on it?
Okay. Just think about, there is a state inside of us which is like our foundation. And that doesn't change. On top of that, there's been a whole lot of things that you said, turbulence has been added. But lots of turbulence has been added. And here I am on the top, let's say, in the surface level, dealing with things at a surface level, being very immediatistic, if you know what I mean. Like, this happened, then I say that. This happened, I do that. And we've forgotten the big picture. So in a way, what I do is I allow myself to go back to the foundation, because that's equally there as the turbulence is. But I have to bring it out, So I remember a guy, there's a story about someone who wanted to learn how to meditate. And he said, he went to some master, and the master said, sit yourself in a quiet place, but whatever you do, do not think of red-faced monkeys. So he prepared the meditation place, sat there, and then he remembered the instruction. Oh yeah, he told me not to think about red-faced monkeys, so what do you think he thought about? So as long as you start to fight with your turbulence, it will just get stronger. Just look at it, observe it. Like you're in a train and those scenes are going by the window. So the turbulence, there's turbulence outside, but I'm on the train. And I start to, in the same way that I showed you, that if you concentrate on visiting your house mentally, you can put those things aside. So you are concentrated on visiting your spiritual house mentally, yeah? And the deeper connection with the divine, and the deeper connection with your true qualities. And if anything else comes up, it's just a scene going by the window. Don't jump out of the train just because there's some turbulence there. Okay? Just observing and being detached will make our minds calm. Always. Got it? Okay, let's have some meditation. And having said that, let's become this, this person in the bottom right-hand corner, left-hand corner. This one.
So the one in the back with the one eye open, is that like half?
Yeah, that's a half awake. That's only half awake. Now I want to be fully awake. So again, just sit with your, hands on your knees or in your lap. Don't sit rigidly, don't be very sort of slack either. Just become aware of the moment. If I become present, I can start to slow down. The past is not here, the future is not here. There's some music going on in the background. I can feel the air coming in and out as I breathe. Now I allow myself to, okay, just as I'm sitting on my chair, just imagine a subtle seat behind my eyes, in between the two sides of the brain, a few centimeters back from the middle of the forehead, which is like the headquarters of my conscious being. It's here I think and feel and organize. It's here I decide and have ideas. So in the same way I'm sitting on my physical seat, let me sit mentally on this spiritual seat. It's from here that I actually command my life. And as I sit in this consciousness, I become aware that in my state of rest, I'm actually peaceful. I'm actually well disposed towards others, loveful. I'm not jumping around, so I feel fairly content. I'm this spiritual being, this point of conscious energy. Then just as I'm in the center of 360 degrees of things happening here, in this room, I'm also in the center of my life. Even the things of my life are not here present, but actually I'm connected. There are people and things, objects, relationships that are important. Some better, some more difficult. But all of those things are somehow connected with me. It's like a network of my life. And if I'm in the center of my network, and at this moment I'm starting to feel calm and stable, that has a positive effect on all of the things and people that are connected with me. In real time, actually. I can serve my world just by becoming calm and stable. Then I see myself as this tiny child of the divine, and that connection is there. I remember the source. A sort of a spiritual sun on the screen of my mind. I connect up, and that makes me feel even more stable, more calm. So I just enjoy for a few moments that state, that deep state, which is actually my foundation. I've forgotten maybe. I am that. I've become something else, but this is what I am. I have a name and a form in the physical world, but that's not what I really am. I'm the spiritual energy behind that name and form. And I allow myself to feel my deeper qualities of peace, love, happiness, truth, for sure, purity maybe. It's my deep foundation. Just enjoy that experience. Okay, open your eyes a bit more. Continue this consciousness with your eyes open for a few more moments.